Welcome. Settle into your space. Let the weight of the day slip away from your shoulders, your arms, and your fingertips. Take a deep, slow breath in and release it. As the world outside your window quiets down, allow your mind to drift back through the corridors of time. Tonight, we are going to embark on a journey across oceans and centuries. We are going to trace the quiet, steady dawn of a new world and the birth of a nation built not just on land, but on a profound, enduring idea. This is the story of America. It is a story of quiet courage, of endless horizons, and of an unyielding spirit that resides in the heart of anyone who has ever looked toward the horizon and dared to dream of liberty. Close your eyes. Let my voice be your guide as we travel back to a time when the world seemed impossibly vast, and the future was a blank, beautiful parchment waiting to be written upon. Part 1. The Great Expanse and the Starlit Ocean. Imagine, for a moment, the Atlantic Ocean in the early 17th century. It is a vast rolling canvas of deep indigo and cresting white foam, illuminated only by the silver glow of a full moon. The rhythm of the waves is slow, constant, and powerful, a heartbeat of the earth itself. Riding these massive, gentle swells are small wooden ships, their sails catching the invisible breath of the wind. Aboard these vessels are people of extraordinary resilience. They are leaving behind everything they know: the cobblestone streets of old European cities, the familiar hearths, the green valleys of their ancestors. They are trading certainty for hope. Why do they endure the damp chill of the ocean night? Why do they rock upon the endless sea, listening to the creaking of the ship's timbers? They are drawn by a whisper, a promise that lies over the western horizon. It is the promise of a place where a person might breathe free air, where the soil might belong to the hands that till it, and where the mind might worship and think without the heavy hand of ancient kings pressing down upon it. As you lie there, comfortable and warm, imagine the feeling of that cool ocean breeze. It is the breath of anticipation. It is the quiet, steady drumbeat of destiny. They did not know exactly what they would find, but they carried within their chests a flame that could not be extinguished by the salty spray or the cold nights. It was the fierce, quiet pride of the pioneer. Part 2. The Untamed Wilderness. When the wooden hulls finally scraped against the sandy shores of the New World, the silence of the land was profound. This was North America. Picture the continent as it was. Endless emerald green forests stretching for thousands of miles, their canopies so thick they created a twilight world beneath the branches. Ancient pines, towering oaks, and majestic maples stood as silent sentinels over a land of breathtaking, rugged beauty. Clear, cold rivers carved their way through deep valleys, sparkling like diamonds under the midday sun. For the early settlers at Jamestown, at Plymouth, the beauty was matched only by the challenge. Yet there is a distinct pride in building something from nothing. Hear the rhythmic, echoing thwack of the axe against timber. It is a slow, methodical sound. With every swing, a home is built. With every seed planted in the dark, rich soil, a future is secured. These people were not born soft. They were shaped by the winters, by the snow that blanketed the world in a pristine, quiet white. During these long, silent winters, families gathered around roaring hearth fires. The crackle of the wood, the warmth radiating against their faces, these were the moments where the American character was forged. It was a character of self-reliance, of neighbor helping neighbor, of a quiet dignity born from hard work, and an unshakable faith in a better tomorrow. They looked out at the vast wilderness, and they did not feel fear. They felt the boundless potential of a land that belonged to the brave. Part 3. The Seeds of Enlightenment. As the decades drifted by like clouds across a summer sky, the small, huddled settlements grew. The forests were gently pushed back to make way for cobblestones, for brick buildings with warm, glowing windows, for bustling harbors smelling of pine tar and sea salt. 13 distinct colonies took shape, clinging to the eastern edge of the great continent like pearls on a string. But something else was growing too. It was not something you could see or touch, but it was as real as the oak trees in the village squares. It was a philosophy. In the quiet wood-paneled rooms of Boston, in the busy print shops of Philadelphia, in the sprawling, sun-drenched estates of Virginia, men and women were reading, thinking, and debating. The air in these spaces was thick with the scent of pipe tobacco, old paper, and black ink. Enter the minds of the early architects of the American spirit. Think of Benjamin Franklin. Picture him in his quiet study in Philadelphia, the soft glow of a candle illuminating his face. He is a man of endless curiosity, watching the lightning in the sky, studying the currents of the ocean, printing words that would travel up and down the coast. Franklin embodied the American belief that through reason, hard work, and invention, human beings could improve their own condition. He was the grandfather of American ingenuity, a man who believed that common sense and a clever mind were far more valuable than a royal title. These colonists began to realize something profound. They were separated from the old world by 3,000 miles of ocean. The old rules, the old hierarchies, the divine right of kings, these concepts seemed absurd when viewed from the edge of a vast, untamed continent. The land had made them different. The land had made them free in spirit. They only needed the world to recognize it. Part 4, The Gathering Storm and the Pen. The transition from subjects to citizens was not a sudden explosion, but rather the slow, inevitable rising of the tide. When heavy taxes and unjust laws were imposed from across the ocean, the American colonists did not initially reach for their muskets. They reached for their pens. They reached for the law. They stood on their dignity. Imagine the city of Philadelphia in the early summer of 1776. The air is warm and humid. The streets are lined with red brick, and the sound of horse hooves clops softly in the background. Inside the Pennsylvania State House, now known forever as Independence Hall, the atmosphere is heavy with consequence. Here we find Thomas Jefferson of Virginia. He is a tall, quiet man with a brilliant, restless mind. He sits alone in a rented room on Market Street. The window is open to catch the evening breeze. On the wooden desk before him is a blank piece of parchment and a feather quill. Listen to the scratch of the quill. Scratch, boss. Scratch, scratch. He dips the pen into the dark ink. He's not just writing a letter to a king. He's trying to capture the very essence of human dignity. He searches for the right words to explain why a people must sometimes forge their own path. And then the words flow onto the page, words that will echo through eternity, bringing comfort and fire to generations yet unborn. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let those words settle over you. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It was a staggering declaration. Never before in the history of the world had a nation been founded on an idea, on a philosophical promise that power comes from the people. When those 56 men signed a Declaration of Independence, they knew they were signing what could be their own death warrants. Yet, they stepped forward one by one. John Hancock signing his name with grand, sweeping elegance so the king could read it without his spectacles. John Adams, fiery and resolute. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. They did it so that the future, so that you could live in the light of freedom. Part 5, The Quiet Strength of the General. Of course, words on parchment, no matter how beautiful, must be defended. The Revolutionary War was long, and it was hard. But tonight, we will not focus on the roar of cannons or the clash of steel. We will focus on the quiet endurance of the American spirit, embodied by one man, George Washington. Picture him on a cold winter evening. He's riding a white horse through a snow-covered valley in Pennsylvania. This is Valley Forge. The trees are bare, their branches reaching up like fingers against a gray sky. The snow is falling softly, covering the ground in a thick, insulating blanket. The army is hungry. They are cold. Their boots are worn through. Yet they stay. They stay because of the man leading them. Washington was not just a general. He was the center of gravity for a new nation. He possessed a stoicism, a quiet, monumental dignity that commanded respect. He did not ask his men to endure anything he would not endure himself. As you picture him riding through the camp, returning the salutes of his freezing soldiers, you can feel the immense weight upon his shoulders. He carried the dream of America on his back. He was a man who could have been a king. The people adored him enough to give him a crown. But his greatness lay not in the power he took, but in the power he walked away from. Like Cincinnatus of ancient Rome, he fought the war, won the impossible victory against the greatest empire on earth, and then he simply went home to his farm in Mount Vernon. By handing his sword back to the civilian government, he proved that the American experiment was real. The law was king, not the man. Part 6. Forging the Great Law. With the war won, the quiet of peace settled over the 13 states. But it was a fragile peace. The new nation was like a ship without a rudder, drifting in the currents. They needed a foundation, a bedrock upon which to build a lasting house. And so, in the summer of 1787, the great minds gathered once again in Philadelphia. The windows of Independence Hall were nailed shut to keep their debates secret, making the room stiflingly hot. Yet, in that sweltering room, they engaged in the most remarkable intellectual compromise in human history. James Madison, small in stature but a giant in intellect, arrived with books of history, having studied every republic that had ever risen and fallen. He, along with Alexander Hamilton, Washington, and Franklin, debated, argued, and reasoned for months. They were trying to balance a scale that had never been balanced before. How to give a government enough power to protect the people, but not enough power to oppress them. Imagine the soft, rhythmic ticking of a clock in that grand room. The rustling of papers, the quiet murmur of voices finding common ground. Out of this careful, deliberate process came the United States Constitution. We, the people. It was a magnificent machine of laws, designed with checks and balances, a system of gears and levers that ensured no one part of the government could overwhelm the others. It was not perfect, for it was made by mortal men, but it contained within it the mechanism for its own improvement, the ability to amend, to grow, to become a more perfect union over time. As the convention drew to a close, Benjamin Franklin looked at the chair George Washington had been sitting in. On the back of the chair was a carving of the sun. Franklin noted that artists often found it difficult to distinguish between a rising and a setting sun. But now at length Franklin smiled. I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun. Part 7. The Unbroken Horizon. With the Constitution ratified, and Washington serving as the first president, the sun was indeed rising on the American Republic. From those initial 13 states hugging the Atlantic coast, the gaze of the nation naturally turned westward. Beyond the Appalachian Mountains lay a vastness that defied comprehension. Rolling prairies that looked like oceans of golden grass waving in the wind. The towering snow-capped peaks of the Rocky Mountains, standing like jagged crowns against the blue sky. The painted deserts of the Southwest, glowing red and orange in the twilight. The story of America became a story of movement. The pioneer spirit, born on the shores of Jamestown and Plymouth, was reawakened. Imagine the slow, steady creak of a Conestoga wagon making its way across the plains. The wooden wheels turning over the soft earth. The gentle lowing of oxen. The smell of canvas and campfires. Families packing everything they owned into a wooden box, walking alongside it for thousands of miles, simply because they believed there was something better just over the next ridge. It took unimaginable courage. It took a profound belief in oneself and in the providence of the journey. They built towns where there had only been sagebrush. They laid iron tracks across deserts and drove golden spikes to connect two oceans. They carved a civilization out of the frontier, bringing the light of their republic with them. This westward expansion, this manifest destiny, was the physical manifestation of the American soul. It is a soul that refuses to be confined. It is a soul that believes tomorrow can always be better than today, provided you are willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. Part 8. The Enduring Flame. As you rest tonight, feeling the comforting weight of your blankets, think about the unbroken chain of history that stretches from those fragile wooden ships crossing the dark Atlantic, all the way to this very moment. The founding of America was not a single event. It is a continuous, living breath. It is a promise that is renewed by every generation. It is the courage of the Minutemen at Lexington, standing on the village green in the cool morning mist. It is the brilliance of Jefferson's pen. It is the steady, calming presence of Washington. It is the fierce debates in the halls of Congress. It is the pioneer looking westward. The story of America is a testament to the belief that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things. It is the belief that freedom is the natural state of the human soul. When you look up at the night sky, you see the same stars that guided the Mayflower. You see the same moon that illuminated the snow at Valley Forge. Those celestial lights have watched this nation grow from a fragile dream into a beacon of hope for the entire world. America is more than a place on a map. It is an idea that says you have value, that your voice matters, and that you have the right to author your own destiny. It is a grand, beautiful experiment, and it is still unfolding. Let the pride of that history settle over you now. Feel the quiet strength of the millions who came before, the builders, the thinkers, the dreamers. Their resilience is woven into the fabric of the world you inhabit. Their courage is a quiet melody, playing softly in the background of time. Breathe in the calm night air. The struggles of the past have secured the peace of this present moment. The foundation is strong. The house is built. The rising sun still warms the continent from the Atlantic shores to the Pacific waves. As you drift closer to sleep, let the vastness of the American landscape fill your mind. The gentle rustling of the eastern forests, the slow, sweeping winds of the Great Plains, the silent, ancient majesty of the western mountains, the rhythmic crashing of the ocean against the shore. It is a land of peace tonight, a land of liberty, a place where dreams are safe, guarded by the legacy of those who dared to believe in a better world. Rest now. Let the history fade into a quiet, comforting hum. The journey is over for today. The stars are keeping watch. Sleep well, knowing the spirit of the Republic, that quiet, enduring flame of freedom, burns on, steady and bright, through the night.